The scene was an early Monday morning, Washington Dulles International Airport, September 2028. Business travelers rushed through security. Families juggled suitcases and strollers. Loudspeaker announcements called out destinations and boarding gates. Amid the crowd, a woman in a navy blue suit, polished yet simple, walked with calm precision. Her name was Dr. Vanessa Cole, age 46, and she had just been confirmed as the nation's new Secretary of Homeland Security. Few in the public knew her face yet. Today, she was set to fly to Atlanta for a closed-door briefing with federal officials. Vanessa carried nothing more than a small roller bag and a leather tote. Her ID was in hand, boarding pass tucked neatly inside her passport. She moved with ease, but her presence carried quiet authority. Tall, with natural coils tied back and eyes that scanned everything, she was someone who noticed details most overlooked. Years of field intelligence work had shaped that skill. As she approached the security line, something shifted. Two airport police officers, both white men in their 30s, stood by a TSA checkpoint. They whispered to each other, glanced at Vanessa, then began walking toward her. She didn't notice at first. "Ma'am, excuse us," one officer said, stepping into her path. Vanessa stopped, composed. "Yes? We need to check your identification again," the officer continued. "Routine matter." Vanessa handed over her passport, already open to the photo page. Her calm never broke. The officer studied it, then exchanged a quick glance with his partner. "We're going to need you to step aside," he said. Other passengers looked on, some curious, some nervous. The woman in the suit, the officers at her side, the quiet tension building. Vanessa asked only one question. "On what grounds?" The officer avoided her eyes. "It'll be explained once we clear this up." She was escorted to the side. Her bag was taken. Her tote was searched. She remained silent. Years of training had taught her restraint. But then it escalated. A third officer arrived, this one older with stripes on his sleeve. He leaned in, voice sharp. "We've had reports of suspicious individuals fitting your description. You'll need to come with us." The crowd whispered now. Phones tilted upward, recording. A black woman in a navy suit, calm yet surrounded. Her tone measured. "I am a United States citizen. You've seen my identification. I'd like to know the basis of this action." The older officer gestured. "Turn around, ma'am." "Hands behind your back." Gasps echoed. Vanessa did not resist. Her wrists were cuffed. The click of metal echoed louder than the airport intercom. Passengers shook their heads. Some muttered. A mother pulled her child close. One traveler whispered, "She looks like somebody important." Another filmed every second. Vanessa was led away, dignity intact, but the weight of humiliation pressed heavy. She was not an ordinary traveler. She was hours away from a public announcement that would introduce her as the highest-ranking security official in the nation. The officers who placed her in custody had no idea. Vanessa Cole sat in a small airport security office. The air was stale, walls bare, a single metal chair under fluorescent light. Her wrists were still cuffed. Two officers hovered at the door. A third, the sergeant, leaned against a desk, flipping through her documents, her passport, her government-issued ID, even a letter sealed in a folder addressed to the White House Chief of Staff. He barely looked at them. "You traveling alone?" he asked. "Yes," Vanessa replied evenly. "Purpose of your trip?" "Official business," he smirked. "Official? That's a vague answer." Vanessa studied his face. She had seen that look before, doubt mixed with quiet authority, used to intimidate. Years earlier, in field operations overseas, she had been interrogated by foreign security forces with the same expression. She had survived those rooms. She would survive this one too. "I've given you identification," she said calmly. "I expect you to verify it." Instead of checking, he slid the passport back. We had a report about a black woman in a suit traveling alone behaving suspiciously. You fit that description. The room grew still. Vanessa let the words hang. Suspicious, because she was black, alone, and professional. At that moment, the door opened. A fourth figure entered, not a uniformed officer, but a plainclothes federal agent, badge visible on his belt. He moved quickly, eyes narrowing as he saw Vanessa in cuffs. "What's going on here?" the agent demanded. "Routine check," the sergeant replied. "We had a match." The agent walked over, picked up the folder with the White House seal, and froze. He looked at the ID again. His voice dropped. "Take the cuffs off. Now." The officers hesitated. "Sir." "Now," the agent repeated louder. Keys jingled. The cuffs released. Vanessa rubbed her wrists, expression steady, though a mark was already visible. The agent faced the officers. "Do you have any idea who this is?" Blank stares. "This is Dr. Vanessa Cole, as of last week confirmed by the Senate. She is the new Secretary of Homeland Security." Silence struck. The sergeant's smirk faded. One younger officer swallowed hard. The others shifted, suddenly avoiding Vanessa's gaze. The agent turned to her, voice softer. "Madam Secretary, I apologize. This should never have happened." Vanessa looked at each officer in turn. Her voice carried no anger, only weight. "Your assumptions put you in this position. Remember that." She picked up her bag and folder. "My office will follow up." With that, she left the room, escorted now not as a suspect, but as a leader. Passengers in the terminal who had witnessed the arrest watched her walk free, posture straight, eyes forward. Some clapped quietly. Others shook their heads in disbelief. The videos already circulating online carried a caption, "Black woman arrested at airport. Turns out she's Homeland Security chief." By the time Vanessa reached her gate, the story had already begun to spread. By the next morning, the footage had spread across every major platform. News anchors replayed the moment she walked out of the airport security office. Social media burned with commentary. Hashtags trended, articles filled timelines, and opinion pieces flooded the web. The headlines wrote themselves, "New Homeland Security Chief Arrested at Airport. Profiling or procedure? Secretary Cole's first test of authority." Vanessa sat in her office in Washington, suit pressed, coffee untouched. She scrolled through her phone, reading the comments. Some defended her, others dismissed it. Many asked the same question. If this could happen to her, who else was at risk? That afternoon, she was called to Capitol Hill. A special committee wanted answers. Cameras lined the halls. Microphones pointed her way. "Madam Secretary, will there be consequences? Do you believe this was racial profiling? What message does this send to the public?" Vanessa paused at the podium. Every network carried her words live. She spoke slowly, her voice firm. "What happened to me is not just about one mistake. It reflects a system of assumptions that have gone unchallenged for too long. I was treated as a threat before I was treated as a person. That should concern every American." The room grew quiet. Security must protect without prejudice. Every citizen deserves fairness, and every officer deserves training that reinforces this truth. Reporters shouted more questions, but she walked on. She had said what needed to be said. Behind closed doors, the White House supported her fully. The president himself called. "Vanessa, you handled it with strength. Now let's turn this into reform." Meanwhile, at the airport, the officers involved were suspended pending investigation. One resigned quietly. The sergeant, who had smirked, faced a formal inquiry. For him, the moment that seemed routine had become a national scandal. In homes across the country, families debated the story. Some saw it as proof of injustice. Others argued it was blown out of proportion. But no one could ignore it. The story had struck a chord. And for Vanessa, the question was clear. She could let this pass as a personal incident, or she could use it as a turning point for herself, for her department, and for the country she had sworn to protect. Weeks passed, but the sting of that morning at the airport clung to Vanessa like a shadow. Even after the headlines faded and the cameras moved on, she carried the memory. Not as a wound, but as a reminder. Her position as Homeland Security Chief came with weight few could imagine. Every day brought new crises. Cyber attacks traced to foreign networks, threats to airlines, warnings of terror cells plotting in hidden corners. Yet no matter the scope of the problems she faced, she never forgot the smaller stage of humiliation, being judged in seconds by her skin, her gender, her presence. Vanessa decided she would not bury that moment. She would use it. She ordered a top-down review of airport security. Her memo reached every regional director. Procedures must protect both safety and dignity. Meetings followed, sometimes heated. Veterans in the field argued back. "We don't have time for courtesy when threats are real." Others muttered that this was politics, not policing. Vanessa listened. Then she spoke. "I know what it's like to be treated as a suspect when you've done nothing wrong. And if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. If our system humiliates the innocent, it weakens us all." Her changes rolled out in phases. Mandatory cultural awareness training was introduced, not as a box to check, but as an ongoing program. Officers were taught to slow down, to observe before assuming. Training scenarios shifted. Instead of rewarding the fastest arrests, programs rewarded officers who resolved situations without escalation. At first, results were rocky. Reports came in of officers rolling their eyes in sessions, muttering about wasting time. One union even threatened a lawsuit, claiming morale was being crushed. Vanessa pushed forward anyway. It took a year before the numbers turned. Complaints of profiling at major airports began to drop. Surveys showed passengers reporting more respectful treatment, and still, arrests for actual threats stayed steady. Safety hadn't weakened. Dignity had strengthened. The media noticed. Headlines read, "From victim to reformer, Homeland Security Chief reshapes travel." Editorials praised her boldness, while critics called her naive. Talk shows debated whether kindness could coexist with vigilance. Vanessa ignored the noise. She cared about the data, the results, and the people walking through airport gates without fear. She also made a quieter choice. She began meeting, off the record, with families who had lived through experiences like hers. Immigrants pulled aside for extra screening. Young men detained for hours without explanation. Mothers humiliated in front of their children. Vanessa sat with them, not as a chief, but as a listener. She heard their stories, asked questions, and wrote notes in a leather-bound journal she kept locked in her desk. Many of those meetings ended in tears, not because she offered magic solutions, but because someone in power had finally cared enough to hear them. Through it all, Vanessa fought personal battles too. Long hours pulled her away from her daughter Maya, now in high school. Maya once said over dinner, "Mom, you fix strangers' lives, but I miss you fixing mine." The words pierced deeper than any headline. Vanessa promised to do better, to balance. It wasn't always easy. 2 years after that arrest, Vanessa stood in the same airport where it had all begun. Cameras lined up, reporters waiting. This time, she wasn't in handcuffs. She was behind the podium, surrounded by officers who had just completed the new training. "Security," she said into the microphone, "is not only about stopping threats. It is about protecting dignity. Our work will not be complete until every traveler is safe and respected." Applause echoed across the terminal. Some clapped because it was expected. Others clapped because they felt it. For Vanessa, it was more than a speech. It was a return to the ground where she had been underestimated, now transformed into the place where she declared change. That night, alone in her office, she looked at the framed photo on her desk, her swearing-in day, hand pressed against the Constitution. Next to it sat her father's old watch, scratched from years of factory work. His voice echoed in her memory. "They'll doubt you twice as hard, so you'll have to be twice as good." He had been right. But what he never imagined was that one day, his daughter would not only prove herself, she would bend the system itself toward fairness. The years that followed showed the ripple effect. Other departments copied her programs. Universities invited her to speak on leadership and resilience. Law schools studied her case as an example of reform sparked by personal injustice. And the community, the same community that had once witnessed her humiliation, now looked to her as proof of what persistence could build. By 2030, Vanessa retired from federal service. She took a professorship, teaching the next generation of leaders about the balance between power and humanity. Former officers wrote to her, some admitting they had once resisted her programs but had changed. Travelers wrote letters of thanks. Parents said their children dreamed of joining Homeland Security not as enforcers, but as protectors. And it all traced back to one night, one flight, one arrest that should never have happened. That night on Highway 47, a cop's compassion sparked a movement. And at an airport gate years later, a wrongful arrest reshaped a system. Both stories share the same truth. A single choice in a single moment can ripple through time. The final question is not about Vanessa. It's about you. When the rules collide with human dignity, what would you choose? Power or fairness? Share your answer in the comments and subscribe to our channel for more stories of courage, heart, and the choices that shape us all.